Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the mentally ill population in the U.S. We're having a lot of problems right now with that. Many mentally ill people are being put into prison or are homeless, where their brains become destroyed even more by drugs and not taking care of themselves, bad hygiene and just stuff like that. We're more likely to get attacked in society because we're vulnerable and kind of strange. I think it would be a good idea if they bring back institutions. Now, if they can handle this, let me tell you, the humans, I'm subhuman, cannot handle doing basic things a lot of times or being decent. Um, yeah, so uh, bringing back the institutions would be kind of nice because a lot of us just can't function in society. Like after all the stuff I've been through, I'm pretty simple. And I can't work a normal job anymore. I used to have to work 2 or 3 jobs because I was low skilled, and I was okay with that when I was young. But it gets kind of frustrating the older I get because I have been damaged from a plethora of things, and I can no longer work 2 or 3 jobs and support myself. I'm dependent on aid. And that brings me to another problem. I end up in the fiery pits of hell in society when I'm not on aid. And then, people will be like, well, you make bad life choices. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of pressure down here, social pressure. Like when I was a teenager, my manager wanted to date me and fired me for not sleeping with him. Um, yeah, that's kind of a hard memory. And I dissociate from that. Like, oh, that never happened. But it did happen. And it happened other times too, with people comparing me or saying that I wanted to date outside my league and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, I have a crush on Putin, but it's not really like I'm trying to get him. Yeah, minus that I sometimes spam RT around certain times of the month, which they've blocked me for that. And it's like, that's ridiculous. Your porn site, you let the males talk about the athletes, but you won't let me talk about how I like Putin, which is ridiculous. Because, okay, anyway. So sometimes a lot of us mentally ill people, the reason why we come up with strange delusions and stuff is because we're personifying our problems or what's happening on other people. Like, for example, I watched a video about this guy who said he was going to kill a bunch of people, and then his mom called the police, and then when they came, he was pretty much like, she won't leave me alone, she's driving me crazy, she's the one who's crazy. And the whole reason why he was saying he was going to kill a bunch of people was essentially because he wanted to kill her and was getting aggressive. And the police had no idea about this. Basically, we get exploited in society. Some of my family have had me committed for stupid reasons, and I'm like, I don't really need to be committed right now, but it's kind of like a power-hungry thing. And also, they're like, they want you to be a certain way, and they're kind of disappointed that you aren't. Anyway, back to the institutions. We could self-sustain ourselves there, so they couldn't blame us for taking paychecks that they're going to steal. Okay, and back to personification. Sometimes, and now the CIA has deserved a few emails from me, especially after the weapons. But sometimes when I'm getting off a medicine or something or going on to a new one, I'll kind of like have issues cognitively, and I'll blame the CIA. Like I'll call them, or I don't really call them anymore because they scream at me, which is fine. I shouldn't do it. But I send them a nasty email, so they probably got a filing cabinet on me by now, but the rest of my family's there too. I wanted to do something like go to school and become a productive member of society, like I've said several times, but it's pretty much prevented. Um, yeah, and then in the fiery pits of hell, which is where I end up, the bowels of society, because of I'm low skilled and unable to take care of myself, I end up making Johnny's, which she was I'm not going to speak for her, but I'm going to speak of my observations for her, of her. And that's pretty much like she had a really hard life in the ghetto because of the way her parents treated her and the way society treated her and how she ended up with a bunch of like being abused by a bunch of people. And I will end up having children that do the same thing because they will burn with me in heck. And you're like, well, you made terrible life choices. And it's like, well, yes, eventually I'm going to have to take the power back. But I wasn't the only. I mean, there's social pressures down in hell. Like guys will want to date you, and if you don't date them, then they get violent. Like I said, okay. So anyway, or your taste in men, as she says, basically you're in the gutter trash, and you're just making a bunch of children that have to suffer. Plus, mental illness and idiocy, or whatever you want to call it, run on one side of my family. So it's more likely that I'm going to have a stupid kid, and then they're going to end up sinning like I did because they're desperate. But I don't want to make any more Johnnies. I'm not trying to insult you if you do see my video, which you probably never will see my video. But pretty much all the things they blame you for, and you've got to take back your power too. I'm not saying that you can't take back your power and be like, I'm responsible for some of this. But a lot of it is social pressure. and it's hard to get out of. And I don't want to put a child through that, even a normal child, because then they'll be all emo and then they'll get attacked by the weapons.